One bad trade. That is all it takes. Not a blown account, not a catastrophic loss, just one trade that did not work, and your entire mood shifts. You close the platform, you go quiet, you replay it, not to analyze it, to understand what it means about you. And that right there, that question of what it means about you, is the most expensive question in trading. Because the moment a trade becomes personal, the moment a loss feels like a verdict on your capability, you stop managing capital, you start managing identity. And identity management, disguised as trading, is one of the most destructive forces in this profession, because every decision changes. You hold the losing trade too long because closing it means admitting you were wrong. You cut the winner too early because locking in profit feels safer than watching uncertainty take it back. You revenge trade because the market delivered a verdict about you that your ego cannot accept. None of these feel like ego protection in the moment. They feel like trading decisions, but they are not. They are the market controlling your self-worth, and your self-worth controlling your execution. In this video, we are going to break down exactly why that happens, what it is doing to your consistency, and how to build the one thing that makes it stop, a foundation of worth the market cannot reach. Let's go deep. Part 1. Trading is not neutral. Most traders believe they are operating objectively. They tell themselves they are simply executing a system, applying criteria, managing risk, running a probability-based business. But trading is rarely neutral because humans are not neutral, and every trade, from entry to exit, passes through the filter of a mind that is constantly interpreting events for meaning, not just financial meaning, personal meaning. A win does not just mean profit, it means confirmation, it means the analysis was correct, it means the judgment was sound, it means you are good at this. A loss does not just mean a reduction in capital, it means something went wrong, it means the judgment was flawed, it means perhaps you are not as good at this as you believed. This meaning-making is automatic. It happens below the level of conscious awareness. Before you have decided to feel a certain way about the trade, before you have even finished processing the result, the brain has already attached significance to it, already placed it within the narrative of your capability. And once meaning is attached, once the trade is no longer just a trade, but a data point in the story of your competence, objectivity disappears. Because objectivity requires neutrality, and there is nothing neutral about a mind that is using market outcomes to measure its own worth. Part 2. The neuroscience of self-worth and performance. Let's go inside the brain. Because the attachment of self-worth to trading outcomes is not a character flaw. It is a neurological pattern, and understanding it at that level removes the shame and replaces it with the clarity needed to address it. The brain has a self-evaluation system, a network of regions including the medial prefrontal cortex and the default mode network that constantly monitors and updates the self-concept. The self-concept is the brain's working model of who you are, your capabilities, your worth, your place in the social hierarchy. This system is continuously updated by incoming information, and it is particularly sensitive to performance feedback. When performance is positive, when outcomes confirm competence, the self-evaluation system updates the self-concept upward. Confidence increases, self-efficacy strengthens, the sense of capability expands. When performance is negative, when outcomes suggest incompetence, the self-evaluation system updates the self-concept downward. Confidence decreases, self-efficacy weakens, doubt expands. This is normal. It is how the brain integrates experience into identity. In most domains of life, this system serves a useful purpose. It drives improvement. It motivates effort. It calibrates self-perception to reality. But in trading, this system creates a specific and damaging problem, because in trading, short-term outcomes are not reliable indicators of competence. A valid trade executed perfectly can lose. A sloppy trade executed poorly can win. The relationship between execution quality and outcome is probabilistic, not deterministic. But the self-evaluation system does not know that. It treats each outcome as meaningful feedback about competence, which means it is constantly updating your self-concept based on information that does not reliably reflect your actual skill. A losing streak updates the self-concept downward. Confidence falls, doubt rises, execution deteriorates, which produces more losses, which updates the self-concept further downward. The spiral is neurological, not motivational, and it cannot be interrupted by trying harder, only by changing the information the self-evaluation system uses to update the self-concept, from outcomes to process, from results to execution quality. That is the shift, and it is more fundamental than most traders realize. Part 3. When trading becomes identity. At the beginning, trading is just activity. You are learning, testing, exploring a new domain. There is curiosity without consequence, interest without identity. But over time, as investment increases, as time spent increases, as the craft demands more of you, something shifts. You stop being someone who trades, you become a trader. And that identity, that self-definition, comes with expectations. Expectations of performance, of improvement, of competence, of being right more often than wrong. Now every trade carries weight that it did not carry before, because every trade is no longer just a trade. It is a performance review, a test of whether you deserve the identity you have adopted. And the more central that identity is, the more of your self-concept is built around being a trader, the higher the stakes of every single trade become. Let's be specific about what this looks like. When trading is peripheral, when it is one of many things you do and care about, a losing trade is a losing trade. Frustrating, perhaps, but contained. It does not contaminate the rest of your self-perception, because your self-worth is not sourced primarily from trading. It has other foundations, relationships, other competencies, other domains of life where capability is demonstrated. But when trading becomes central, when it becomes the primary domain through which you measure your worth and capability, a losing trade is no longer contained. It bleeds into your mood, into your confidence across all areas of life, into your sleep, into your relationships, into your perception of your own future. Because the trade was not just a trade, it was a referendum on who you are. And that referendum never ends cleanly, because the next trade is already coming, and with it, another chance to prove or disprove your worth. Part 4. The hidden behaviors of identity attachment. Once trading becomes personal, once self-worth is attached to outcomes, behavior changes in ways that are not always obvious. Because the behaviors do not feel like ego protection. They feel like trading decisions. The first hidden behavior is holding losing trades too long. When a trade moves against you and your identity is attached to it, closing the trade means admitting the analysis was wrong. And admitting the analysis was wrong means admitting, at some level, that your judgment was flawed, that the self-image of competence was incorrect. So you hold, not because the structure supports it, not because the thesis is still valid, because exiting means accepting a verdict about yourself that your ego cannot process. The stop is not protecting capital, it is protecting identity. The second hidden behavior is cutting winners early. When a trade is in profit, closing it early secures the validation. It locks in the proof that you were right before the market can take it back, before uncertainty can reemerge. Because if the trade reverses and the profit disappears, if the win becomes a loss, the validation is not just gone, it is replaced by its opposite. So you exit early, not at your target, at the point where the profit feels safe enough to claim. The third hidden behavior is revenge trading. After a loss, the self-image has taken damage. The verdict delivered by the market that the analysis was wrong is sitting uncomfortably in the self-evaluation system. And the fastest way to overturn that verdict is another trade, a winning trade that proves the loss was noise, that the competence is real, that the identity is intact. So you enter again, not because a qualified setup has formed, because your ego needs restoration. Each of these behaviors has a common root. The trade is no longer being managed for capital. It is being managed for identity. And identity-managed trades almost always cost more than capital-managed ones. Part 5. The validation loop. Winning becomes more than profit. It becomes proof. Proof that you are improving. Proof that you understand the market. Proof that you belong here. Proof that the identity of trader, the one you have invested so much in, is justified. But this creates a dependency, a need for the market to keep confirming what you want to believe about yourself. And the market, indifferent, probabilistic, moving based on forces that have nothing to do with your self-concept, will not cooperate reliably. It will produce losing streaks. It will invalidate analysis that was sound. It will move against positions taken correctly. And every time it does, the validation loop breaks. The proof is withdrawn. The confidence that was sourced from outcomes collapses, and the trader who was operating with apparent confidence during the winning period is now operating with apparent doubt during the losing period. Same strategy, same market, same skills, completely different execution. Because the confidence was never based on a stable foundation, it was based on recent results. And recent results in trading are among the most unstable foundations for confidence that exist, because they fluctuate by design, by the nature of probability distributions, by the randomness that is inherent in any market environment. Process-based confidence does not fluctuate with results because it is not sourced from results. It is sourced from the quality of execution, from the adherence to the plan, from the discipline applied regardless of outcome. That foundation is stable because it is within your control, unlike outcomes, which never fully are. Some of the most valuable insights about identity and trading come from professionals who have deliberately built a psychological separation between who they are and how their trades perform. One principle shared consistently among experienced traders is this: a trade is data, it is not a verdict. When a professional takes a loss, they do not experience it as a statement about their competence. They experience it as one data point within a distribution that was always going to contain losses, a distribution that requires losses to function correctly. The loss is not telling them something about who they are. It is telling them something about where this particular trade fell within the probability range of their system. That is all, nothing more. And because that reframe is genuine, because it is not a coping mechanism but a deeply held understanding of how probability works, it does not require suppression of emotion. The emotion is simply not generated in the first place, because the self-evaluation system is not triggered, because the trade was never connected to the self-concept. Another principle observed among professionals who have maintained stable performance across extended periods of market volatility: identity built on process is unshakable. Identity built on outcome is always one trade away from collapse. The professional identifies as someone who executes correctly, who follows the plan, who manages risk precisely, who applies the system with consistency. That identity is confirmed every time the process is honored, regardless of whether the trade wins or loses. A losing trade that was executed correctly confirms the identity. A winning trade that was executed sloppily challenges it. That inversion, where process adherence is the measure of identity rather than outcome, produces a self-concept that the market cannot destabilize. Because the market controls outcomes, it does not control execution. And execution is where identity now lives. Let's address a common misunderstanding about detachment in trading. Detachment does not mean not caring. It does not mean becoming emotionless. It does not mean approaching every trade with robotic indifference. Traders who genuinely love the craft, who find it endlessly fascinating, who are deeply invested in their development, can and should care intensely about their trading. But caring about trading is different from sourcing self-worth from trading results. The distinction is this: caring about trading means being invested in the process, in the quality of analysis, in the precision of execution, in the depth of understanding, in the consistency of application. Sourcing self-worth from results means using market outcomes as the primary measure of personal value. One of these creates passionate, engaged, process-focused execution. The other creates emotional instability, identity-threatened behavior, and inconsistent performance. The detachment that works is not emotional distance from the craft. It is psychological separation between the trade outcome and the self-concept. The ability to care deeply about how you trade, while remaining neutral about what any individual trade produces. A losing trade from a well-executed process is not a failure of the person. It is the probability distribution doing its job. A winning trade from a poorly executed process is not a validation of the person. It is noise within the distribution. When this distinction is genuinely internalized, not as a concept, but as a felt experience, the market loses its power over the self-concept. And when the market loses its power over the self-concept, execution becomes clean. Because the trade is no longer personal, it is simply the next repetition in a long series of process applications, each one evaluated on execution quality, none of them evaluated on what they say about who you are. Part 8. Practical Tools for Separating Identity from Outcome. Let's get concrete. The first tool is the identity audit. Review your last 10 trades. For each one, ask honestly: did the result affect my mood? Did the result affect my confidence? Did the result change how I felt about myself as a trader? If the answer is consistently yes, if outcomes are reliably shifting your emotional state and self-perception, your identity is attached. That awareness is the starting point, because you cannot change a pattern you have not clearly identified. The second tool is the process identity statement, written at the top of your trading plan, every session. I am a trader who executes correctly. My identity is confirmed by process adherence, not by trade outcomes. A loss from a correct process confirms my identity. A win from a flawed process challenges it. This statement, read before every session, gradually rewires the self-evaluation system. It gives the brain a new source of identity confirmation, one that is within your control, one that does not fluctuate with the market. The third tool is the outcome neutrality practice. After every trade, win or loss, before doing anything else, write one sentence. Not about the result, about the execution. I entered at the correct level and honored my stop. Or, I exited early before my target without structural justification. One sentence about process, not outcome. Over time, this practice trains the brain to evaluate trades on execution quality rather than financial result. And when the evaluation framework shifts from outcome to process, the emotional response to results gradually diminishes. Not because you stop caring, because the trades are no longer being measured against your self-worth. The fourth tool is the identity diversification practice. If trading has become the primary domain through which you measure your worth, if it is the central pillar of your self-concept, deliberately invest in other domains: physical training, creative pursuits, relationships, other professional skills. Not to reduce commitment to trading, but to ensure that no single trade, no single session, no single losing streak can destabilize the entire self-concept. Because a self-concept built on multiple foundations is far more resilient than one built on a single pillar. And a resilient self-concept produces resilient execution, session after session, regardless of results. Closing. Trading was never supposed to define you. It was supposed to be something you do, not something you are. But somewhere along the way, through investment of time, money, identity, and hope, it became personal. The wins started meaning something about your capability. The losses started meaning something about your worth. And the market, indifferent, probabilistic, utterly unaware of your self-concept, became the most powerful evaluator of your value. More powerful than your own judgment, more powerful than the evidence of your growth, more powerful than the process you have built and the discipline you have demonstrated. That is the cost of identity attachment, not just inconsistent performance, but a life where your sense of worth rises and falls with every candle. Where a bad trading week is a bad week as a person. Where a losing streak is a crisis of self. You deserve better than that, and your trading deserves better than that. Because the version of you that trades without self-worth attached, the version that approaches each trade as one repetition in a long process-based series, that version executes differently, cleaner, calmer, more consistently. Not because they care less, because they have found a better place to source their worth, one the market cannot reach, one no losing streak can touch. Build that foundation, protect it, and trade from it. Your growth as a trader begins with self-awareness. The rest follows. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, control your mind.